Hey, welcome back everyone. You're watching Centerline Designs. My name's Cole and today we got another repair video for you today. What we have here is the bottom end off an outboard motor. I believe it's either a 40 or a 60 horse Honda. A neighbor down the road brought this to me. There are several issues with it. The main reason he brought it in is because it started leaking oil. He picked this thing up for I think around $200 because it had some other parts broken on it. He went ahead and fixed. And there was a gouge out of the side of the bullet that he put some JB weld on. It's like a metal epoxy. And it worked for a few years for him, but he said he noticed that it's leaving a little bit of oil trail in the water. So a little bit of oil's coming out and some water's getting in, and that's no good. It's time to get fixed. So looking at it, I noticed quite a few issues wrong with it right off the get-go. There's a big old chunk missing out of the front of the bullet. Not to mention the gouge in the side. There's a crack in the skeg here, but then the skeg itself doesn't sound right. It looks highly corroded. It's been changed once, I can tell, and the old welds are extremely porous, and rather than trying to fix this, I think we're gonna go ahead and put a new skeg on it for him. So we have several different areas we need to work on this. First step is getting the metal prepped. I'm gonna see if we can open this lower unit up, take the prop off and stuff like that, because we're gonna have to gouge, clean out all of the old epoxy, and yeah, try and clean it up, get the oil out of it, and then go ahead and we're gonna TIG aluminum filler rod back in, grind it all down, kind of polish it up, and put it back together. So it's pretty, not necessarily easy repair, it's just straightforward. All right, well, you can see this thing took a significant blow to the side. As I started removing that epoxy, there was a crack developed up through here and then a lower crack. So they probably hit a rock on the side and it pushed it in a little bit. And we are open to the inside of the case now in one spot. This is gonna make things pretty interesting because this has oil in all these cracks. So we're gonna have to go ahead and remove this plug because it's got an O-ring seal and carefully try to blow some solvent, acetone, through these cracks and wash it inside. And obviously there is a risk, there's gonna be debris in there now, some aluminum debris. We'll try very hard to get that out. Once we have it fixed and welded, we will flush this case several times. So ideally, I would love to pull this backing plate out, but as you can see, the corrosion on this thing is pretty high. I think if we cleaned it up, we could get it out, but I also don't have the right spanner wrench for this thing. I have a buddy who does. So if I am not confident I can get this case clean inside just by flushing, I will borrow a wrench, we'll pull this backing plate out, and then it's wide open inside. So it'll be very easy to get any metal debris out of this. Before we go ahead and cut this out, let's get a template. Well, there's no going back now. Yes, I know that wasn't a straight cut, and I don't care because I was just trying to follow the joint and leave as much original material as possible, because what we do when we trace out and cut out a replacement piece, we will then trace this cut to that and cut it out. It's something I've always done, and I will continue doing so. I never want to take it right down to nothing. I always leave as much base metal as I can. And even if the chunk went up all funky, I would only replace that piece. It's just the best way. Well, we're starting this job with a fresh pair of TIG gloves. I had a pair of Yes Welder gloves that were really nice, but they just didn't last as long as I wanted. Unfortunately, they ended up ripping. Today I'm going to be using this Yes Welder CT 2050 that they gave me a while back. Honestly, I've been working it pretty hard in this shop, and give you a little shot of it here. It's been keeping up. No real complaints. It does what it needs to do. Works when it needs to work. All right, well, you seen, we got this metal mostly prepped. I just need to wire brush it still to try and get off any lint or something that rag may have had. But I'm confident, hopefully, I got enough acetone through those cracks to get the majority of the oil and debris out of there. I'm gonna crank the balance on this machine, so we're gonna be doing a lot more cleaning, because castings, they're quite an alloy. They have a lot of different metals in them, so it's a little dirty. So we're gonna increase the cleaning action on the machine. We're using a 4043 filler rod. I don't remember the exact reason, but I believe it's because that rod has similar alloys in it, so it lends itself well to filling and doing jobs like this. And we're gonna be using a number 5 cup with a 60 thou tungsten ground to just a slight blunt point. All right, so I'll describe my process for you. What I'm gonna go ahead and do right off the bat, get this machine set up, turned on. We're using 100% argon as we always would, and we're gonna crank that balance up quite a bit. I'm gonna come along with the torch, no filler rod, and do what I call washing the material. and I'm just gonna try and run the torch over all the areas that I'm gonna be adding material. And what that's gonna do is allow that cleaning action, the negative half cycle, to bring all those impurities to the surface. I may, if there's enough of them, give it a wire brush, try and get rid of them. And if I have to, I'll do that a couple of times, and it helps to prep that base metal, get some of the impurities out on the surface, and then we can start laying filler on top of that. I've had good luck with that process. We will see what happens here. Fingers crossed we don't just blow a hole in it. And then yeah, we'll go ahead and fill this, cut out the replacement skeg, get everything polished, be good. All right, well, we've done a fair bit of welding on this already, taking some breaks. Whenever I have a spot that boils up that I just can't get clean, I'll go in and I dig it back out with the die grinder and start again. And it's really just a process of you keep doing that. And eventually you get most of the impurities out. I take the time to wire brush it, re-acetone it. It's constantly trying to wick some of that oil from inside back in. So that's what I'm essentially fighting here. And something to note, most people think you should weld on these drained, but it's actually the opposite. It's best to have the bullets full of gear oil because all that gear oil helps to sink the heat out of the actual casing itself and redistribute it around. So it's always best to weld on them full of oil. Obviously this one, being that it was cracked and leaking, you just can't. So I'm just gonna have to be cautious, take my time. You know, I can hold my hand on this, but it is hot. So we're gonna let it normalize, come back down in temperature, and the areas around here are looking really, really good. I'm not seeing any surface porosity, but something to note, I haven't decided yet, this area by the drain plug that was actually open to inside where the oil is, I may not smooth down. And the reason is because the outermost layer is gonna be your cleanest with the least porosity, and that will act as your seal. If you go and take that down and you grind halfway into the bead where the porosity is, you're risking having a bunch of little holes that make a pathway. And I've fixed one that was really, really bad, and it sat on the guy's shop floor for a few weeks before it got put in, and they noticed a ever so small drop of oil, and it was just coming through that porosity. And that's just not acceptable to me. If I'm charging someone for a fix, it's gotta be good. So I may need to leave this area because that cap will act as my seal. Down here by the skeg and up here, doesn't matter. They're not open to the oil. I'll be able to flush those down, make them look like they never happened. But ultimately it's gonna come down to function over form here. So if I have to leave it, I will, but we'll find out. So far it's filled in pretty nice. Okay, well, while that's cooling down over there, let's go ahead and cut out this skeg replacement. This is some 1/4" flat bar. You can buy the cast replacement skegs, but this does work as well. All right, well, we'll go ahead, let that cool down again. And you could hear that arc sounded really erratic. So once everything's cooled down, I'm gonna go ahead and regrind that tungsten, make sure I have a good ground. It should sound more consistent buzzing, but you can hear that crackling of a wandering arc. So we'll try and address that. If you want to learn more about TIG welding and the process of welding aluminum, I have a video dedicated to it. I'll put the link in the description below. The other thing to not do when you're doing this is put the ground on either end of the shaft, because you don't want to make that AC current go through the bearings inside. They can pit it up and the internals of this won't last that much longer. I don't know if it picks it up, but that time any little crackling wasn't the arc, it was pockets of junk blowing up. So that's what we're dealing with there. See that ugly little pocket of stuff? That is in the metal I haven't really even touched. So that is base metal. That's how porous it is. And you see all those little pinholes? Very hard to get out of there. All right, I went ahead and whipped up a quick spanner wrench for this, and it seems like we got it loose. There we go. Now we can clean that out. All right, well, I may have forgot to hit record on that, and if so, then you're watching this. I got everything back together in there, and the locking tab bent back over, so let's put the plug in and go ahead and shape this thing. Well, there you go, folks. That's another one down. Pretty happy with how that turned out. Like I say, I'm not gonna grind this down because that was a hole through to the gear case, and the best way to get a seal is to leave the surface of that weld. So we'll leave that. There you go. Chips all fixed. Put on a new Skeg. Sounds way better. Alrighty, well, if you like that video, hit that subscribe, give me a like, give me a comment if you want to. I really appreciate it, and stay tuned. We have a lot more coming. Thanks. Cheers.